A well-known Windsor cultural club is getting a little smaller, selling off part of its land to make sure they'll stick around for the long haul. East Windsor residents say crews have been working in the area and may have caused the death and injury of some owls. Looking a lot different than it did this morning. We woke up to a bit of a winter wonderland, but the grass green as always underneath all that white stuff. Colette Kennedy with the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. An increase in the number of outbreaks at workplaces in Windsor-Essex today, followed by a warning from the health unit for business owners. Get people working from home wherever possible to prevent the rapid spread of the new variants. Here's a look at what we know about those active outbreaks right now. 8 as of this morning. The health unit doesn't give many details about these workplaces, only the sector. The more contagious variant, the B117, it's been found at 2 manufacturing workplaces and a workplace in the healthcare social assistance sector. Now, nearly a third of all active cases today are variants of concern. Dr. Wajid Ahmed says for the most part, cases at these outbreaks are contained, but says he will act if things get out of control.
If it increases up to a certain point where we are concerned about the safety of the workplace, then we'll have to shut down the workplace, but we're not there yet. And that's why I wanted to make sure that we take this opportunity to remind the workplaces to maybe review their practices and protocols just to ensure the safety and well-being of their employers and also the safety of their workplaces.
Now, a big part of that workplace effort to stop the spread is making sure that people don't go to work when they have symptoms. Now, it appears the province will bring forward provincial paid sick days, possibly in the next few days. The apparent change comes after months of doctors and the opposition at Queen's Park calling for changes, as Lorenda Redikoff reports today.
When will the government bring forward a real, effective, paid sick day program for Ontario's workers?
Science Table's been asking for it for months. Just about everybody in Ontario.
Again, calls for paid sick days. Today, a much different response from the government.
We're disappointed that the federal budget did not include some of the enhancements that we had asked for. The government of Ontario will be coming forward with additional enhancements in the very, very near future.
The government's communications staff then sent a highlighted list of statements by the Premier and ministers asking the federal government to do more over the past few months. But 2 weeks ago, the Premier also criticized people who've been asking for paid sick days, never mentioning problems with the federal program.
So to all the opposition and everyone that's preaching about the sick days and playing politics, rather than do that, why don't you try to help someone by telling them where they can go? If
this is changed, it would be the government's third reversal since it brought in new restrictions last Friday. Over the weekend, it backed down on closing playgrounds and arbitrary police stops.
How many people have gotten sick with COVID-19? How many people have lost their lives because the government has been dragged kicking and screaming to a point where they may have to actually act and do something?
All this as the Premier is self-isolating after a negative COVID test.
I hope the Premier uses this time to reflect on the fact that those of us who can take time off and be paid to reflect on our privilege.
The Liberals are introducing a bill of their own. It would give 10 paid days off, much more than the 2 from when they were in power.
Coming up for debate on Thursday, the government can just take that and run with it. That's what we believe is needed.
That's unlikely to get the support of the PCs.
Hey, good afternoon.
The government House leader says Cabinet will be discussing its own plan in the next few days.
We're moving quickly to get it right, and it is something that we're going to be doing imminently.
Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
And Windsor-Essex has been including more groups that are eligible for COVID-19 vaccinations, like those with a body mass index over 40 who are currently listed as a high-risk group.
So they've got highest risk groups, high-risk groups, and then at-risk groups. And they're very clearly laid out. And a BMI of greater than 40 has actually been identified as a high-risk group of patients, which is important because when you start looking down the categories of risk factors, when you start looking at the at-risk criteria, someone that has obesity with a BMI of that high, they actually have a bunch of those risk factors.
According to 2015-2016 data from Public Health Ontario, about 64% of residents in Windsor and Essex County are overweight or obese. The World Health Organization has found a link between obesity and severe illness from COVID-19. A Windsor-Essex multilingual campaign has launched to promote vaccine awareness. This initiative, it's trying to meet the linguistic needs in our region.
People trust information more when it's in their mother tongue. And, when, for example, like I just imagine, a grandparent reading, information about the vaccine published by, the Canadian government or the WHAC, and it's in Arabic. I think they're going to feel like it's safer to trust versus, some random post they read online in English that they barely understand.
Now, information about vaccination like eligibility, clinic locations will be included in a 2-page flyer. That'll be translated into language like Arabic, Cantonese, Punjabi, Somali, and Spanish.
So having the correct resources for everybody to read should be a priority out there, because there's a lot of misinformation going. That's why it causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of panic.
Now, more information can be found on the local WeVax website. That includes an online tool making information available in 100 languages. Users can even have the content read aloud to them if they want. U.S. President Joe Biden says his country would be prepared to send additional COVID-19 vaccine doses to Canada.
We hope to be able to be of some help and value to countries around the world. I've talked to our neighbors. As a matter of fact, a fellow who's working really hard to take care of his country and deal with this, I was on the phone with for about half an hour today, and the Prime Minister of Canada. We helped a little bit there. We're going to try to help some more.
The United States has already sent more than 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine here. As of today, the U.S. will have administered 200 million doses of the vaccines. 80% of Americans over the age of 65 have now been vaccinated. Anyone in the United States over the age of 16 is now eligible to get a free vaccine shot. Canada now has a case of a COVID-19 variant that was first identified in India. The case is in Quebec, and the strain is believed to be more easily transmitted, and it's being blamed for that massive COVID surge in India. It's also triggering calls for even tougher border controls in Canada.
We have some of the strongest measures in the world on the borders, but we will also continue to look at other ways based on science and data to keep Canadians safe.
Canada has not banned flights from India, although other countries, such as the UK and the US, have. Ottawa's current approach doesn't target specific countries. Rather, it's a set of testing and quarantine hurdles that all international passengers have to clear. However, health officials say they're doing a new risk analysis of the threat posed by the variant. The Fogolar Furlan Club in Windsor is selling a huge portion of its land. 10 acres of the eastern portion of the property is up for sale for about $4 million. Dale Molnar now on the sale and what it means to the club.
The 10 acres stretch from the North Service Road back to the city-owned park along the north end of the property. Loss of revenue due to the pandemic was part of the reason the club decided to sever and sell.
Well, obviously we're running at around 10% of our original revenue or regular revenue, so it has an effect on it for sure. But so, like I said, we wanted to make sure that we didn't run into the similar issues that other cultural clubs have run into in the past. And so in order to stay relevant, in order to stay afloat, we figured that this would be the best opportunity to do so.
The club hopes to take advantage of a hot housing market, so it's expected to become a housing development. The realtor handling the sale says there are already several interested developers.
6 to 8 from our city and then a few from other cities. I know I've been in contact with a couple in Toronto, a couple in London as well, and my phone's been ringing off the hook ever since we hit MLS yesterday.
Part of the club's plan involves building an indoor multi-use sports turf in part of the Udine complex.
It'll be multiple sports that will be and multiple groups that will be coming in to use that space.
There will still be open field space for sports teams to use. Quattrotrochi says despite the pandemic losses, the club is not in danger of closing.
We can still go forward with what we're doing. I mean, it's just kind of it's just a level of comfort for us, as opposed to if we didn't sell it, we're not going to make it. It's something as part of a general plan.
The deal goes before the city's Committee of Adjustment at the end of May. The new owner may have to get a slight zoning amendment depending on what plans they have to build there. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The fatal shooting of a 16-year-old black girl by police is being investigated in Ohio. It happened just minutes before former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was convicted in the killing of George Floyd. Today, the U.S. Attorney General announced a wide-sweeping investigation of that city's police department. Susan Ormiston reports from Minneapolis.
Justice for George Floyd is reverberating here, but a recognition too, there are others. Young black men and women killed by police. Each of these markers bears one of their names. This memorial created after George Floyd was killed. Today, the Department of Justice in the U.S. launched a wide-ranging investigation into policing here.
We'll assess whether the Minneapolis Police Department engages in a pattern or practice of using excessive force, including during protests.
A comprehensive review, says the U.S. Attorney General,
of the Minneapolis Police Department's policies, training, supervision, and use of force investigations.
Activists in Minneapolis have long been saying there are deep systemic problems with their police force, but they say their complaints were dismissed.
I'm glad that they're finally taking a look, but we asked them to do this many years ago. My hope is that this leads to a complete overhaul of the Minneapolis Police Department, particularly being able to uproot those officers who have a history of excessive force and who have a history of deadly force.
Meanwhile, the magnitude of the moment endures. Derek Chauvin, convicted and jailed now, sentencing to come. The Floyd family and their lawyer absorbing the news yesterday. Brother Philonus Floyd prayed for it.
People really believe that we have freedom, and it's freedom for all since justice was served for George.
But as this verdict is celebrated, funeral preparations for another young black man fatally shot by police just 15 kilometers from here. Dante Wright's funeral tomorrow, and his name will join these names as the pressure continues for racial justice in America's policing. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Minneapolis.
And people in Windsor-Essex that we spoke with say the verdict was expected and welcome, but that there's still a long way to go to achieve true justice.
In my heart, I knew it was going to come guilty, guilty, guilty. You know, so to hear that, you know, justice is being served, you know, in this manner, you know, it's a real show of the solidarity, the global solidarity that we've seen that got behind, you know, a movement that says, you know, it's no longer okay to brutalize and to murder Black and Indigenous bodies.
I hope that this will be a furtherance of a justice system that works for everyone. It blew my mind. I've never seen anything so horrific in my life, but I'm so glad that that jury saw fit to take justice into their own hands and be honest and not be fearful of retribution and find that man guilty.
True justice would be George Floyd alive. No court decision can deliver him back to his family. Our rage and sadness for his loved ones does not end today, regardless of the outcome. So essentially, the message being that there's no justice in a system that is fundamentally anti-Black and unjust, and a conviction is baseline. So Black community deserves so much more than that, and to me that includes the abolition of anti-Black policing systems.
Some people in East Windsor are upset after finding a dead owl in a backyard. A second injured owl was also found. They think it was caused by work being done on the trees in their alley. Jacob Barker has more.
You see how they did all the branches?
It was Deanna Hayden's dog that alerted her to something in her backyard.
It was quite early, so I went out there to see what he was alarmed at, and it was a baby owl. At first I thought it was just a tree stump, and it was an owl, but just on the other side of the fence.
Her neighbor's yard also had an owl in it, but that owl was dead. She says crews had been working on trees in the area that week, trimming branches to make way for wires. She believes that's what caused this. Hayden has never seen an owl in the area before and says it was devastating to see the dead one.
I think whoever did it needs to be reprimanded for their for disturbing nature. I mean, it's uncalled for.
Within 15 minutes of finding the bird, she brought it to a veterinary clinic, which eventually brought it here to Wing's Rehab Center in Amherstburg.
This is an eastern screech owl.
Moore says the bird was put into intensive care. It was also missing an eye. However, she says that may have happened some time ago.
He's doing better. He's really skinny. And I think that's mainly because of the eye injury.
She says it's common for birds to be brought to them affected by work on trees.
Yes, if they know that the tree is occupied, then they should wait to cut it down till after the babies have left. But it is hard to check every branch on a tree, too. Well, in my opinion, if they can move the wires, they should.
The Canadian government does consider the screech owl a priority species as part of its bird conservation priority for the region, and the province's Fish and Wildlife Act prohibits people from destroying nests of wild birds.
Most wildlife just needs the respective people to be able to raise their young and just allow them to carry on being wildlife. So it's all protected.
CBC contacted the city, several telecommunications companies, and an electrical company as well, but has not been able to ascertain who was working in the area last week. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The Ontario Hockey League season has been cancelled, a huge disappointment for the Windsor Spitfires.
We were told all along that the league was doing as much as they possibly could to try to get things going, and obviously there were some setbacks, and I think this final stay-at-home order, this third wave, really killed the momentum.
Obviously disappointing for the draft year guys like me and a few others, but then you got to think of it like the older guys who were supposed to come back for their last year, try and earn NHL deals, and the fact that they won't be able to get that opportunity. I mean, my heart goes out to them.
The sports minister said last week it would be irresponsible to approve a return to play. Other junior leagues have managed to get the seasons going. For about a year, 2 women have been singing the national anthem outside Hotel de Grace Healthcare. As Leslie McCurdy and Charlotte LaFranc, they've been belting out "O Canada" in tribute to essential workers everywhere, every Sunday, rain, snow, or shine. McCurdy posted on her social media that they sing for everyone, working hard everywhere to provide us with whatever it is we might need while surviving this pandemic. She adds she's grateful and full of appreciation for their effort and, in some cases, sacrifice. As we take a live look outside here, that sun's certainly brightening things up nice after the cloudy day. Colette Kennedy is on the way. Now, we might be a few weeks into April, but if you were out and about this morning, well, you know that winter wasn't quite done with Windsor-Essex. This woman here measured 7 inches of snow outside her home in Kingsville after weeks of spring weather. The snow started to fall yesterday afternoon. Now, by this morning, you may have woken up to see the region sporting an almost festive makeover. The forecasts have been calling for 5 centimeters of snow, but it's not clear how much officially fell at this moment. Now, it's not always a bad thing to see snow in April either. Fiona Odlum explains why.
We can all agree, snow in April's a real bummer if you've already pulled out your patio furniture. But for farmers, they call this white gold, and it translates into million-dollar moisture. This snow can account for a significant portion of annual precipitation, and it increases soil moisture essential for plant growth. Snow positively impacts other aspects of agriculture, from soil fertility to even global trade. Soil fertility increases when it snows, when big, wet, heavy snowflakes trap dissolved organic nitrogen, nitrate, and ammonium in the atmosphere, delivering it free of charge into the soil. Rain and snow together provide between 1 and 10 kilograms of nitrogen per acre each year. Farmers won't be canceling their fertilizer orders, but they might be buying less this year. And this just doesn't help farmers growing grains. It also helps livestock farmers, creating natural water sources for the animals. So when it snows in April, I want you to look out the window and say, look at that gold, white gold.
Joining us now live is Colette getting in a snow globe of your own there. How are things making out here weather-wise? This snow stuff, are we past that now?
Well, a little bit of light flurry activity, but yes, we're past this event. I'm going to show you some of the totals, though. Yeah, we had some significant ones, as many of you know. And just the snow is very beneficial. It can be certainly that moisture for our crops. What I'm more concerned about is the deep freeze for any crops that have been kind of fooled, certain plants that are a little more tender, and they've been fooled and they're kind of coming up. Then we can sort of get into some issues there with seeing things with the deep freeze then being harmed. Seem to be having a little bit of issue with my clicker here. I really want to show you these snowfall totals, but I'll tell you for the Windsor region, let's see if this one wants to work.
I think that's big TV saying we don't. Oh, there we go. There's the magic.
Well, the battery may have died right as we're live on air. Great timing. So for the Windsor area, 5 to 8 centimeters here. Chatham-Kent around 15 centimeters. Amherstburg, though, 18. We saw Kingsville there in that imagery. Leamington, 13. And Harrow, I think, Ray, my spotter there, about 12 centimeters there. And much of this coming from Environment Canada and also a weather list that I'm part of. So I thank everyone for their help with getting those totals together. So yeah, it was a little heavier, especially along the lakeshore than anticipated. Yes. Here's a look at your current temperatures. 5 degrees for Windsor, 4 Chatham-Kent, and those winds, they're sustained decently, but some of the gusts have been stronger too. We are going to have to start talking about wind chills once the temperature goes below freezing. Those become significant into tomorrow morning. I'll get there in just a moment. I mentioned some of the little bit of flurry activity. In some cases, it's even mixing with a little bit of rain, a bit of grapple in there too, which is almost like small hail. So a few things going on because of those winds coming across the lake. However, we'll see kind of variable skies, some sunshine in the morning, more cloud cover in the afternoon on Thursday, but at least we get into drier conditions as high pressure builds in for Friday, and we warm up nicely into Friday too. Then Saturday, the next system will move in, particularly later in the day. We'll begin to see that with some showery activity. This is what I'm talking about tonight, and this is why I'm concerned about certain vegetation and crops feeling like minus 12. That warm up, would you look at this? There you go, April. This is what it does.
Wow, the big dip, the lows and the rises, all happening at once here.
That's right, Chris.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
There is hope for the beautiful game after all. We'll show you how Chelsea fans are celebrating next. The royal family has marked the Queen's 95th birthday with a tweet. It says that the Queen remains at Windsor Castle during the period of royal mourning after Prince Philip's death on April 9th. The Queen bid farewell to her husband of 73 years at his funeral on Saturday. She sat alone at the service because of COVID-19 restrictions. Now, because of the 2-week mourning period, there will be no traditional gun salutes for the Queen's birthday this year. Larger public celebrations are officially held on the second Saturday in June. Big reason to celebrate for Chelsea soccer fans. This is the moment they learn the club plans to quit the proposed European Soccer League. All 6 English Premier League teams have announced they will pull out of the upstart league. This morning, 4 more major clubs followed suit. Only Spanish clubs Real Madrid and Barcelona are still officially involved. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report, it's up next. Thanks for watching.